Welcome to Comics with Dan, and we're going to be talking about Stellarlands #1. Stellarlands is a sci-fi superhero comic published by Comex Studios, written by Max Ferrada, the art's by Ben Worrell, the colors are by Wilson Go, and the letters are by SK. This story follows Anvil Liza and her mission right smack in the middle of an intergalactic feud. But so much more happens as this first issue unfolds. For starters, Anvil Liza is a very refreshing take on female superheroes because she's not over sexualized, even under the guise of it being part of her character. She's just a cool superhero with cool powers. Um, I do really like that she's standing on her own as a female superhero, not derivative of a male hero like Supergirl is the girl version of Superman, and not in relationship with a male hero, just doing her own thing. She's sent on a mission to recover some data from an abandoned base and comes across two local girls, and that's when things start to turn upside down. The story twists and turns after that, but I'm not going to provide any spoilers here. As far as the story goes, I like it overall. Ferrata gets to the crux of the story very quickly within the first few pages, and then builds sort of the background of how we got there, which is good because it grabs the attention of the reader, gets them invested, and then you can tell that there's like some serious lore behind some of this stuff. That there's probably just all kinds of stuff that Ferrata has sort of in his back pocket, waiting to unfold in future issues. I was hooked on the story throughout, and I thought that it had some really cool moments and some really unexpected moments. My biggest issue with the story, however, is that we still don't really know that much about Anvil Liza. I don't get an idea of what her personality is. She's cool and she does cool stuff, but she doesn't necessarily seem like a loner. She doesn't seem overly charismatic. There's just not a lot of substance behind the character, and that doesn't mean that it won't happen in future issues. But I do know that when some of my favorite books that I read, I get attached to those characters right off the bat, and I want to know more about them. In this, it feels a little hollow behind the story that's going on. There's obviously stuff happening there for sure, but it's just it felt like there could have been a little more character work done in issue #1. One reason that I think that this might not have come through in the issue is that there's no narration. It's all done entirely through dialogue. So we have no idea what's going on in her head, and maybe that's the intent. But I know that whenever you have a story that's focusing on a singular, character, at least at the beginning, it's a little difficult to get attached to that character without kind of knowing what they're going through internally. I don't think that this is enough to skip the issue. I'm glad that I read it, and I'm hoping that this is going to get sort of fleshed out, and we get more either narration or more insight into what Anvil Liza is thinking in future issues. Perhaps my favorite part of this book was there are these like futuristic ads, these little intermissions that take place. And they laugh, make me laugh, and they help the world build out a little bit more. It's very creative, and I've got one up on the screen here. Very creative and a fun choice here for sure. The art was really good. Anvil Liza's her design's a little plain, but it's got somewhat of a classic look to it. Personally, I prefer her with the helmet and no cape, which I have a image of that here, versus having the cape with no helmet. Sci-fi books are always an opportunity to get wacky with the artwork, to just kind of do some outlandish stuff. And there's definitely some wild stuff in here for sure. Worrell's illustrations are clear, they're concise. The facial expressions are great, and his style feels pretty like classic and old school, and I really like that. While I like Wilson Go's colors, and I think that they're a good fit for this genre of book, this sort of sci-fi superhero look, I do think that Go could have matched Worrell's classic style a little bit more with that coloring. I think that's probably just a personal style preference than really a real criticism. Just something that I really noticed with it. They're still very good. They're detailed. They're bright. And very consistent throughout. So you can see in the examples here that the coloring is really well done. I do think that I would have liked to see a little more of that classic flatter look to match the Ben Worrell's art style. So the letters were done by SK, who is an Australian creator that I believe has his own like graphic novel studio. There were things I did like about his letters. The reading flow and page design was really well done. It made for an extremely easy read. There were some creative techniques to modify speech bubbles that I generally really like when that happens. Also, there was an alien spoken language, which I don't know what figures or font he used, or an existing fictional language that he used for that, but it was a nice touch, and I liked it. However, there was not a single sound effect. And if you've been watching the channel, you know that I love sound effects, right? They're one of my favorite things about comic books. You don't have to have sound effects in every comic, but this is a spacefaring superhero. I mean, there's so much opportunity to have great sound effects built into this art, and there's not a single one. I mean, I can tell that SK is a great letterer, but I really need sound effects in this book, and I really hope that there's more to come. It's definitely one of the biggest criticisms I have of the book. Stellarlands #1. It's an interesting start, and there's a ton of potential there. It's not perfect, but the groundwork has been laid for I think a really interesting story. And as you know, you can tell with most comics, as the creators put them out, they tend to improve upon things that they did in their first issue. So the first issue and the last issue often look different. Issue #2 comes out on December 27th. So you can get that on Amazon through the Comixology digitally, or you can buy them on the Comic Studio website, which I'll put a link to that in the description. But it's definitely worth looking into for this one. To be honest, a little bit pricey for the physical version, but if you try it out with the digital version and if you like it, then you can pick up the physical version, and I think that'd be a great way to enjoy it. I think I gave this 3.5 stars on League of Comic Geeks because obviously I pointed out some difficulties that I had with the book, but there's definitely a lot of potential there. I did enjoy it. It's a good quality book. I'm looking forward to reading issue #2. So I definitely think it's worth checking out if you're looking for a spacefaring superhero. Make sure you like the video. Make sure that you subscribe. Check out my other videos here, and thank you for watching.